First is a special meeting of the Urbana City Council, and that will be followed by the Committee of the Whole meeting. Will the clerk please call the roll?
City Council members Brown. Here. Hersey.
Here.
Jacobson. Here. Miller.
Here.
Roberts.
Here.
Wu.
Here.
Mayor Marlin.
Here. Next item on the agenda is public input, and we have a special proclamation tonight, and that'll be followed by regular public input from individuals. Rachel Storm, our coordinator of our Public Arts and Culture Commission, wants to lead this off.
Good evening. We're going to share 2 chairs, in which case you both take the chairs and I'm going to do this. Oh, how terrific, even better. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Many of you know me as the Arts and Culture Coordinator for the City of Urbana. I'm really privileged to be here this evening in recognition of Women's History Month, and wanted to take just a brief moment to talk a little bit about some of the initiatives that we have going on between the Arts and Culture Program and many of our area nonprofits and community groups in honor of this nationally recognized month, recognizing women throughout history and their contributions. First, I want to hand it off to Paula McCarty, who's here, and she's actually our featured artist of the corridor this month. In honor of Women's History Month, we have an exhibit up called Women Who Painted, and I wanted to give her an opportunity to talk to you a little bit about it.
Okay. Well, a couple years ago, I've been an oil painter for several years, but a couple of years ago, I wanted to learn how to digitally paint. So I bought a phone with a stylus and set out to paint deceased women painters. And after a while, I accumulated quite a few of them. The intention was to work out ideas to take these digital paintings to oil paintings, larger oil paintings. And so far, I've accumulated about 30 total, 20 digital works and 10 oil paintings that are on display now, 28 of the 30. Some here and some at the Urbana Free Library through the month of March. And what else would you like me to say?
Where can they learn more about it?
Where can they? Oh, yes, I have a website. It's called womenwhopainted.com. After I accumulated enough paintings, a friend had suggested I build a website for these women, and it's an educational tool where you can click on the image of the woman and it will take you to their Wikipedia page so people can learn more about the artist.
It shouldn't be a surprise to most of us in this room that a lot of the women artists that are featured are lesser known names in the art world, as women's contributions in all areas of civic life are often overlooked. We even have people whose husbands are perhaps more famous than them.
True.
Though they might be better artists, who knows. But you should check out what is this wonderful website, because it also functions as a public archive. And it's something that Paul is continuing to build.
True.
Might become part of a larger, longer project.
Yes, that's the plan, to keep this going. There are so many women artists out there, so it could last a lifetime, really.
And you'll see that the artists that are represented really represent a wide range of both types of art and artists who hail from different parts of the world. So be sure to check that exhibit out before you leave this evening. Now I want to pass it over to Claire Conway. Claire comes to us from the Women's Resources Center at the University of Illinois. The Women's Center puts together a campus and community calendar of a wide range of Women's History Month related events. So we just want to take a moment to highlight some of those for you in case you're interested in going out and experiencing more of that this month.
Yes, I have physical copies of the calendar with me that I'm happy to share with anyone who wants one. In particular, I'd like to highlight an event we have coming up on Wednesday evening. We're having an awards reception for the winners of our International Women's Day Photography Contest, where all the photos will be displayed. We'll announce the winners. Refreshments will be served, and it will be taking place at the Asian American Cultural Center starting at 5:30 this Wednesday.
Thank you. I want to first acknowledge before our proclamation that we're joined today by many different women from our community. Of course, they represent a subset of a wide variety of women movers and shakers in our community, but I wanted to invite some folks to join us today to be recognized for some of the things they've done in the fields of education and advocacy, gender equity, social justice, nonprofit management, and so many other areas of arts and culture and civic life, and have really truly made many contributions and a big difference for our community. So when I call your name, I'm going to invite you to stand and be recognized. And if I can invite the rest of us to give them an applause, that would be lovely. The first person is Patricia Avery. And you can stay standing if you will. Next is Evelyn Underwood. Doris McGee. Aaron Tarr. Patricia Leone. Susan Ogwal. Janaea Modest. June Clark Eubanks. Isis Rose. Sarah Colome. Janice Walker. Eldest Melinda Carr. And Dion Liscombe. And now I would love to invite every woman in the room to stand and be recognized for everything that you're doing for women in this community one way or another. So many of the people who are standing right now have contributed to the livelihoods of girls in our community through the arts, through cultural programming, through uplifting, through advocating for equity and social justice. There's just so much to be thankful for, and this, I want to emphasize, is but a subset, is but a sampling of all of the different people engaged in advocacy in our community that I think deserve, of course, more recognition than can ever be showered upon them. But I want to also just hand it off to the mayor because we're going to have a proclamation at this time, but we want to invite everyone to come forward if you're willing to stand near us for this proclamation. Nope. Now you're going to have to go get a little closer. And if you're on the shorter side, maybe towards the front, taller side towards the back.
Are we ready? Okay. This is a proclamation by the mayor of the city of Urbana, Illinois. Whereas, women of every race, class, and ethnic background have made historic contributions to the growth and strength of our nation in countless recorded and unrecorded ways. And whereas, women have played and continue to play critical economic, cultural, and social roles in every sphere of the life of the nation by constituting a significant portion of the labor force working inside and outside of the home. And whereas, women were particularly important in the establishment of early charitable, philanthropic, and cultural institutions in our nation and have provided the majority of the volunteer labor force. And that is the truth. And whereas women have served our country courageously in the military, and whereas women of every race, class, and ethnic background served as early leaders of the forefront of every major progressive social change movement, and whereas women have been leaders not only in securing their own rights of suffrage and equal opportunity, but also in the abolitionist movement, the emancipation movement, the industrial labor movement, the civil rights movement, and other movements, especially the peace movement, which create a more fair and just society for all. Now, therefore, I, Diane Wolfe Marlin, Mayor of the City of Urbana, Illinois, do hereby proclaim March 2020 as Women's History Month in the City of Urbana, Illinois. Congratulations to us all.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thanks. Good to see you.
Thank you all for coming.
Okay, is there any other, do we have any other public input, Charlie? No? Okay. All right, we have one item on this agenda, and that is a couple of staff appointments. The first is for Elizabeth Hannon to be appointed to the position of Human Resources and Finance Department Director and Chief Financial Officer. As you know, with the departure of Todd Rent back in December, Human Resources and Finance Departments have been consolidated. And after much consideration, the new name of this consolidated department is Human Resources and Finance. It took a long time. I'm pleased to submit Elizabeth Hannon's appointment to be our new Human Resource and Finance Director / Chief Financial Officer. Elizabeth, as you know, has deep roots in our community. She had a 26-year career with the City of Champaign. She joined the City of Urbana in 2014 as Finance Director. She's a trusted advisor. She's guided us through the past few years of confronting and resolving our structural budget deficit. We will all be well served by her in this expanded role. So in addition to her promotion to director of the new department, there have been several staff promotions as some of her finance responsibilities have been reallocated to more junior staff. There was also a reallocation of responsibilities in the legal division that'll give us more bandwidth for collective bargaining issues. And the new position of HR generalist has been added to give much needed capacity to process applications, rewrite position descriptions, and help with ongoing recruitment and retention efforts. And I'll go back to the rewriting of positions descriptions. We have some position descriptions that are over 20 years old. So there's a lot of catching up that we have to do in HR, and we are going to appreciate the efforts of this department going forward. So I want to personally thank Elizabeth for her commitment to the City of Urbana. She's tackled some amazingly difficult challenges and has conquered them all with the help of everyone on the staff and on the council. And I deeply appreciate her stepping into this new role, and she will fill it with her characteristic competence, efficiency, optimism, and cheer. And then the second staff appointment I wanted to bring forward, I'll just introduce a bit, and then Carol wanted to provide a little more information because this is a totally new position actually within the city. We've started out several years ago building a foundation for our future, and we've come a long way toward that. And one of the next big challenges awaiting us is to rewrite the city's comprehensive plan. This was published last in 2005, so the data that the comp plan that we're using today is based on is really about 20 years old. So long past due for that to be done. I'm pleased to announce that Andrea Rudy has agreed to join our team to lead this effort. and I'm submitting her appointment to the council for a limited-term position as Senior Advisor for Integrated Strategy Development. She'll lead our comprehensive plan efforts with the support and assistance from Community Development Services Department and report to City Administrator Carol Mitten. Our next comp plan will be inclusive in every way and more comprehensive in every way. It'll include input from all stakeholders in the city. It'll reflect all of our major policy initiatives, and it will include achievable strategies to ensure that the plan is implemented. And I will turn this over to Carol for her to provide some more detail.
Thanks. I want to share a few thoughts with the council and the public about the comprehensive plan process, and maybe Andrea could be settling herself at the table in front of us while I do so, because then she'll introduce herself. There's no blueprint for rewriting the comprehensive plan the way we envision the process. The last time the comp plan was updated in Urbana, we used all in-house staff. And in addition to their work on the comp plan, those staff members were shouldering their regular workload along with those additional responsibilities. That process took 5 years and resulted in such burnout of staff that most of them left. So we don't want to repeat that. We appreciate that the council understands that our comp plan efforts this time need to be additive to our existing resources. With resources reserved for this effort, many communities use outside consultants to drive their comprehensive planning processes. For instance, Champaign County Regional Planning Commission recently led the process for the village of Savoy to rewrite their comprehensive plan. And there's nothing wrong with that approach, but we want something different for Urbana. We think that the money we could spend exclusively on consultants is better spent with a strong in-house team devoted exclusively to this effort, supplemented by consultants on a selective basis. We envision a process that is community-based and relies on both local and national expertise to inform policy discussions that impact land use and economic development decisions. These policy areas will include sustainability, financial vitality, climate change, housing affordability, and public safety. We intend to draw broadly on the expertise of our own staff as well to be sure that everyone sees and understands how their work informs the comprehensive plan and how the finished product will provide a vision for us all to follow and give us common direction. Through our work on the census, we've been developing inroads with hard-to-engage populations. We want to leverage and expand on those efforts for the comprehensive plan. We also learned from the What's in Your Square initiative that soliciting feedback from people using different methods and in different formats is extremely useful. It also generates excitement and creativity. The community, as broadly as we can define that, will write the comprehensive plan. To accomplish that goal, we envision an iterative process that incrementally synthesizes stakeholder feedback into a coherent and integrated whole. The final project must feel genuine and achievable to the stakeholders of Urbana, or it won't work. Activities in support of the comprehensive plan rewrite are expected to begin this summer with the start of the new fiscal year. We're bringing Andrea on now so that she can begin her immersion in all the activities we are currently doing throughout the government related to land use, economic development, sustainability, resilience, support for vulnerable populations, and public safety. Likewise, we will introduce her to community leaders in this area with whom she might not be familiar. She already has an extensive network of business and university relationships, as you can tell from her resume. And with that, I'll turn things over to Andrea to further introduce herself. And after Andrea speaks, me, the mayor, Lori, Andrea will be all available to answer questions about the comprehensive plan process going forward. And Lori will let you know who she has selected as the planner dedicated to work on the comp plan. Andrea?
Great. Thank you, Mayor Meyerlin and City Administrator Mitten. I've been watching with interest the progressive changes that have been happening in Urbana that are creating the city's foundation for the future. I commend the mayor, the council members, and city staff for their vision and work in ensuring that Urbana is poised to address current and future challenges. Having a role in updating the city's comprehensive plan is a challenge that I'm eager to undertake. Having been part of the University of Illinois Research Park master planning process, as well as having led the Champaign County visioning process while at the Champaign County Alliance, I know that developing a comprehensive plan requires inclusiveness of all stakeholders and influencers. It also must result in a plan that is implementable, with specific actions to be achieved within a designated timeline, and also be financially feasible. I pride myself on being able to build longstanding relationships and to foster collaborations among diverse constituents. I also believe ongoing communication and transparency is essential. I appreciate this opportunity to join the city as we sustain and enhance the city of Urbana as a place for residents and businesses to locate and prosper. Thank you.
Are there any questions? Bill?
Yeah, I guess for staff, since this wasn't one of the council mayoral goals that we set a few years ago, I'm interested in, you've called it a rewrite, and why are we doing a rewrite rather than just an update? 15 years is, I think Dennis was on the council when this passed last time. He's the only one. It's a while, but have attitudes in the community changed that much? The same process, from what I read in the plan, was followed last time as far as getting the input. So I'm interested in what a rewrite means versus an update, or is it going to be an update? What do you have planned?
What we do not have planned is an update. So we really think about this as a rewrite, and that doesn't mean that we're scrapping everything that's in the existing comprehensive plan. It's that the thinking that we want to bring to this, and you've heard us repeat it in all these different combinations of words, is really inclusive. And so we not only want the people that show up to be engaged and participate to give us input, we want to go out and find the people that are not being represented by the groups that come forward. We want to think about all our policy objectives collectively, not just land use and economic development. I mean, one of the things that I think was really missing, and it's something that I remember being an important missing link when I was just even interviewing for this job, is the comprehensive plan did not, it didn't underpin an economic development strategy. And I think what we've learned through this struggle of stabilizing our finances is how important that is to our financial stability going forward. But to try to do that without a good foundation from the comprehensive plan, I think is why we feel so strongly about a rewrite. And I know Lori feels strongly about that too, so I'm going to give you a chance to add to what I said.
Just to add, and thank you for setting that, the primer. So 2005 was, of course, before the Great Recession. I think we have a different way of thinking of things now than perhaps we did in the early 2000s when everything was a boom and people were building all over the place all the time. So now is a really good time to set ourselves up for really taking off now that we've had an opportunity to stabilize since the recession. That's one of the bigger things that I see, is that the economy has so changed. And we need to think about different ways of really capturing those things, those changes in the economy.
And I would add a couple of things. One is the recognition that everything we do has to take climate change into account. What's happening today and what's going to be happening in the future. And the comp plan of 20 years ago did not have that, I don't think, as its theme. That should be one of the very main themes of this new comp plan. And the other thing is over the years, you know, every once in a while we'll get an issue come before City Council, and it will remind us that people's opinions about housing density, neighborhood density, have changed, especially when you talk to younger people. So one of the groups that I really want to engage in this process are our younger residents, and to make sure we're getting their perspective on on this plan because it's their future that we're writing here. So we, once in a while, there's a policy that we have in place that somehow may not be appropriate for going forward with, and I want to make sure we're positioning this community to move forward for the next 20 years. Yes?
Just a follow-up, I guess, for Lori. Do you envision this as being similar as far as being a plan of plans? We have a lot of plans we've already worked on as far as bicycle pedestrian plans, downtown plans, and other like corridor plans,
And more plans yet to come,
Yeah.
sure.
Just for clarification, those get automatically incorporated in the comp plan every time we pass one of those. We usually incorporate
Correct. It becomes an element of the comprehensive plan. So I think it is important to use the work that's already been done when it is still relevant. And so there's quite a number of plans that certainly, yes, we can rely on that work that's already been done and weave it into it and then build off of that. There, some of those, maybe there's some tweaks along the way that need to be made already, but certainly relying on those is a huge first step.
Thank you.
Jared?
Question about staffing structure for Lori. I know you haven't announced who it is, but we know who it is that you're going to announce. And I'm just curious, is this going to be a process? I'm curious about council's role is really what I'm getting at. And are we just going to see it at the end results? I imagine we're going to have opportunities to put into something. Are we going to form a special committee of any kind to offer input from council through the process? I know we've done that for other things as well, and I feel like it might be appropriate for this. Any plans about?
Well, as Carol mentioned, there's no plan yet to do the plan. We need to develop that. But obviously, yes, your input will be woven throughout the process. Certainly a lot of opportunities for comment. I know that it is not my MO just to take something and slap it in front of people and say, there you go. I know that's not going to work. So that is not something that I think will happen in this case either.
And we'll count on council to help with the outreach and getting in touch with people in the community as well. So, Dennis.
And so one of the important things about the plan would be goals, achievable goals. We mentioned that. And I'm wondering if the plan will be evolved to a point where we have specific goals as well as general goals. How far deeply will we be imagining the completion or the success of whatever we pick?
I don't know that I have an answer for that at this point, and I think that's going to evolve too. Mm-hmm. One of the things that I think we feel really strongly about is we want to look at what are the comprehensive plans that we aspire to emulate, and we really want to get all this feedback and then start to the reason I said we're going to have an iterative process and it's about synthesizing is because we're not going to hear the same thing from everyone, right? So part of it is going to be how do we reconcile conflicting input. And so that's going to require direction. But then at the end of the day, how strictly can we align around specifics versus maybe the direction is we need to give guidance to staff and the people who will be investing in our community that is more flexible, because for all we know we'll be in the middle of a recession by the time it gets finished. And we want to make sure things are achievable, but we have to recognize that we can't necessarily put investments on a schedule if we don't have all the resources available. So I think even what the final work product looks like is difficult to say right now.
Yeah, and I appreciate the fact that you kind of did touch upon just now the fact that the economic future of the community, the city, the state, and the nation are it's really kind of unknown sort of what direction it's going to all go right now. And, we do have these cyclical downturns, and it's been a long time, and it's been suggested that we might be facing one in the future. So I always want to be optimistic about what's possible to do in our community, and there's always more goals and desires that we have that we can fulfill. So it's going to be difficult in the long run, of course, as it is always, to after we hear from the people and what they'd like to have, and I like it to be open and kind of dream-oriented, and then we get down to like what's really feasible is going to be like the harder task, and it might. Do you see that as being a step that happens after the comprehensive plan is formed, or will it be integrated into the comprehensive plan? I guess I'm wondering how like to what degree will we have to pare down our expectations in the plan itself?
I think, one of the things that one of the reasons why we're approaching the comprehensive plan this way is because we really want whatever comes out of it to not just be direction about land use, and not just be like where do we want the density to be, and what kind of businesses do we want to attract, but we want it to, we've been struggling since I've been here in internal conversations about how do we express who we are, right? And ultimately that what comes out of the comprehensive plan is an expression of who we are. And that needs to be true no matter what the economy is doing. So that's why we feel so strongly about taking this in-house, reaching out as thoroughly as we can to get feedback from the community, so that what's built into it is genuinely who we are and a sense of direction from that perspective. And so that will allow us to have sort of a North Star no matter what the economy is doing.
I like that because I think that this community is a very unique community with a very unique viewpoint, even in the larger regional area.
Mm-hmm.
Eric?
I would say that one of the things our community is, that really identifies our community, is it's tremendously heterogeneous. And I like to point out that in my ward, we have a Roman Catholic church, an African American Baptist church, a mosque, a Unitarian church.
Catholic Church?
Yeah, a Catholic church. A Greek Orthodox church. All of these are in one ward, and they all represent communities that are really providing, I would say, a sort of tapestry of many, many different cultures, traditions, and so forth. So, and I treasure that. And I think most people who reflect on that really do treasure that as well. So whatever you do with the comprehensive plan, whatever we do with the comprehensive plan, we've got to preserve and nurture that.
Absolutely.
Jared?
Just one more quick comment, Andrea. Your resume is befuddling in its comprehensiveness of your experience in life, and we're, I think, all honored that you're willing to come here and work with us on this big task. I mean, I can't even imagine having done half the things that are on there, maybe even a quarter of them. So we're honored, and I think I speak for most of the council in saying that. So thanks for coming to us and seeking this challenge.
Well, thank you. I am honored to be here, and I just can't wait to take on the challenge. I'm looking so forward to it, and working with the city staff. The team here has been phenomenal just to this point, and so I just can't wait to start working with the council and coming up with our own unique comprehensive plan.
Thank you. I will entertain, do we do each of these individually? Oh, Mary Alice?
I thought, was Lori going to talk about the impact on community development?
Yes.
Thank you.
And I feel like I should do like a prom reveal or baby gender reveal thing with balloons now. So the idea that Lily Wilcock would be working on the comprehensive plan, so removed from her day-to-day responsibilities in planning, And then we would hire someone to do those day-to-day things in planning so that the applications get processed, the phone calls get returned, that kind of thing. And then perhaps bolstering up some of our interns during this process would probably also be helpful at certain points in particular. So that is the staffing impact on CD as I see it.
Any other questions? Mary Alice?
So I had a question when we were discussing this last week, and so right now we're bundling these with Elizabeth, right? And we're bundling both positions into a motion. Is that right?
We can.
It's one
We
motion?
can.
I'm sorry? Okay. Well, my question was, with all these shifts and so forth, and the need to kind of promote within and the HR department to be able to take over those functions, what is the bottom line? How much more, less, or are we breaking even in terms of all these shifts?
I had sent an email on that, and maybe you just want me to put it on the record.
Yeah, I didn't see it. I apologize.
Okay, yeah, I sent it last week, it's fine. When you look at all the shifts that took place in HR, taking, sort of cannibalizing Todd's position and so forth, that actually put us a few $1,000s ahead. And then what we did was we had Jim can plug his ears. We had reduced the admin and legal to half-time. So we took the resources from that, cobbled that together with the savings of, with what the net from the rearrangement of things in HR and finance, and we're able to hire an administrative assistant. Yeah, which is an additive position, but the net result is basically neutral.
So there's in addition to hiring a planning person, we're hiring also an administrative assistant?
No, I thought your question had been around the changes between HR and finance, and so I was answering it in that context. Now, when you're asking about the backfill for Lily's position, you will see. Well, I don't know when that'll be in the budget. That'll be in the FY21 budget, because Lily won't start on the comprehensive plan being dedicated to it until July 1.
So if I can just summarize,
Yes.
all of the changes that are taking place in HR and budget right now are basically a wash, right, between using Todd Rent's position. And then the community development group will have an increase because we have to backfill Lily, and then we'll have an increase here for 3 years.
Yeah, and the one piece I can't remember, and Elizabeth might have to jump up on this one, is isn't there going to be a budget amendment to?
There's a budget amendment.
Or maybe, I don't know. Could you, about the money for Andrea's position in this fiscal year?
It's on the agenda tonight.
See, I knew it was like happening or something. Okay. Thank you. I knew we didn't forget about it.
But that's new money.
That's new money.
Okay.
That one is new
All right,
money.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Jared?
I'll make a motion that we approve these appointments.
I'd like to second.
Moved by Jared, seconded by Dennis. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. That motion passes. Welcome aboard.
Thank you very much.
Great.
So that concludes the items on the agenda for the special council meeting, and this meeting is adjourned. And we'll turn it over to Dennis Roberts for the committee of the whole.
Okay.
Yeah. I've got it. Yeah.
The mayor's going to introduce the 6 applicants.
Okay, great. All right. All right, so we're going to begin the Urbana City Council Committee of the Whole meeting. It's 40 minutes after the hour. I'd like to call the meeting to the order. Would the clerk please call our roll?
City Council members Brown.
Here.
Hersey.
Here.
Jacobson.
Here.
Miller.
Here.
Roberts.
Here.
Wu.
Here.
Mayor Marlin.
Okay. We have the minutes of our previous meeting to approve. This is minutes from February 3rd, 2020.
And February 17th.
And, yes, on the 17th as well, yes.
Move to approve.
I'll second.
Okay, moved by Sheila Reese. Jared Miller takes the second. Were there any corrections to the minutes? I don't see any corrections. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, those are approved. All right, would there be any additions to our agenda tonight? Okay, I see none. Thank you. There's going to be one change. We're going to be holding back item number 9, which is an ordinance which is was to authorize the purchase of a certain real estate parcel. That deal hasn't really been completed yet. There's some technicalities to it, so we're going to be seeing that again at a future time on the City Council. All right, we're going to now go to public input. And we're going to have also, do you want to do the appointments first, Mayor? Should we? Might as well. Let's do that. We have applicants for Ward 6, then I will introduce the individuals.
We invited applicants for the position vacated by Dean Hazen to speak tonight for 3 minutes. We have a total of 5 applicants. 4 applicants are here tonight. Joe Smith was not able to be here tonight. He's with his wife on a surprise anniversary trip, so we did not ask him to cancel that trip. But he has provided a written statement that has been distributed to the council members. So we'll go in alphabetical order and invite you to come up to the microphone and just speak into the microphone. Either one is fine. First is Bill Colebrook.
Thank you, ma'am. My name is Bill Colebrook. I reside with my wife and family in the Stone Creek subdivision. My wife and I moved our family from a nearby community to Urbana in 2014. We did so for 2 reasons. We wanted to experience on a daily basis the history, culture, and values of this community. And we wanted our kids to attend Urbana schools due to the diversity in Urbana. By serving on the City Council, I would be in a position to bring about positive change for the current residents and for prospective individuals and families, just like my wife and I, as we searched for a community that reflected our lifestyle and values. I have lived a life of service my entire adult life. I wish to continue to serve in this additional capacity with an appointment to the City Council. I have a bachelor's degree from Illinois State University. Professionally, I have been in law enforcement for 34 years. I'm a retired captain from the Illinois State Police. While serving with the State Police, I gained knowledge and experience with the legislative process as I have testified in both the House and the Senate on legislative issues. I am currently the Chief of Police and Director of Public Safety at Parkland College. As a local Chief of Police, I am also an active member of the Champaign County Community Coalition, seeking to find solutions to the persistent gun violence and charting a path for a better life for our citizens, especially our youth. There are several issues that I believe are critical to the future of our city and to our citizens. Just some of the issues that I intend to work on are, first, the economic viability of various business districts, including the downtown, which includes the Lincoln Square Mall and the historic Landmark Hotel, the University Avenue, Cunningham Avenue, High Cross Road, and Philo Road corridors. As we know, the health and vitality of a city can be gauged to some extent on the quantity and quality of business and commerce that occurs. Second, the continued gun violence in our community. It is my belief, regardless of where the shootings occur in Urbana, or frankly across town to our west, the incidents of violence affect all of us, regardless of where we live or work. And third, the impending repurposing of the Stone Creek Golf Course and how that may impact property values and the quality of life for the residents and the community. To conclude, I hope you find my experience and vision for the City of Urbana and Ward 6 to be highly qualified in order to be appointed to fill the vacant Ward 6 seat. Mayor Marlin and City Council, thank you for your time and attention.
Well timed.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Next up is Tom Hebert.
Good evening. My name is Tom Hebert, and I've been a resident of Urbana for over 30 years. I arrived in Urbana in 1987 to attend the University of Illinois. My wife Laura and I bought our first house just blocks from here in 1992. Our son Jonathan was born in 2000, and he has journeyed through the Urbana school system from kindergarten through high school. In that time, Urbana has given me and my family so much. The great neighborhood parks, park district sports, fire safety with firefighter Phil, watching marching band performances at sweet corn festivals, and Saturday's market at the square. I have a lasting fondness and appreciation for these and many other experiences. When I think about our community, I think about it as a tapestry. So a tapestry has two parts, the warp or main lines or thread, which are the supports for the other component called the weft, that crosses over, under, and through and gives tapestry color and texture. I see every individual in this community as a beautiful part of the weft, filling it with life, meaning, and vibrancy. I see this chamber and these members and the Urbana city government as the builders of the warp, each member taking in the tapestry as a whole, collectively ensuring that there is balance, strength, and durability. And it's these ideals that would guide me as a member of City Council: balance, strength, and durability. I would seek a balance between the concerns of the residents and those of the businesses, to balance the needs to the services, to balance growth with livability, and to balance development with nature. I will strive to maintain, support, and improve the strength of our city, which is rooted in the safety and security provided by police and fire protection, and further strengthened by neighborhood watches and concerned citizens. Urbana's strength is also in the value and attractiveness of the quality of neighborhoods, parks, and businesses, which are reinforced by public services, facilities, and infrastructure. Finally, durability entails the actions that will bring Urbana into the future, the way forward guided by science, research, and data. We must not only plan for ourselves, but we must plan for generations after us. Durability is built through sustainability, resilience, economic and educational equity, and justice. If appointed, I vow to respect the concerns of every resident, to be an active listener, to practice empathy, to deliberate honestly, and to do my best to make informed decisions based on the needs of the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Next up is Andrew Miller.
So first of all, I'd like to thank the mayor and the city council for giving me the opportunity to talk to everybody. And most importantly, I'd like to thank Dean for his service. I've heard nothing but positive, and I wish him the best. My name is Andrew Miller. I'm a software engineer at the University of Illinois. I've lived in Urbana for about 10 years. I've owned a home in Urbana for 7 years. I've pretty much been in the area my whole life. I grew up in St. Joseph. I'm a graduate of Southern Illinois University, Carbondale. Some of the involvement with the community is I am a member at large of the Savannah Green Homeowners Association, and Some of the reasons why I think I'd be a great candidate for this position is I enjoy meeting business owners and talking to them about the problems in the community, and I hope to give neighbors and business owners a voice. Thank you.
Thank you. And last to speak tonight is Darius White.
Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity. I am excited and proud to apply for the appointment for Ward 6 City Council. I look forward to the opportunity to represent everyone in Ward 6 fairly. I will do so by actively listening to the concerns of all our community members with the goal of building a better Urbana, one that thrives economically and maintains its wonderful small town values in our neighborhoods. We live in a great city, and I would love to work with you all to be a team member to continue to work on the City Council's and mayoral priorities to make Urbana an even better place to live, work, and play. Together, establishing plans of sustainability for our local businesses, providing leadership trainings for community members to get involved in boards and commissions, to developing the Philo Road Business District and Lincoln Square. Through my participation of the Civilian Police Review Board and Community Development Commission, I believe I have shown a commitment to improving my skills to be better equipped to serve Urbana. I joined the Civilian Police Review Board with the desire to improve relationships and build a bridge that both officers and community members feel comfortable about crossing. I joined the Community Development Commission to assist in the decisions of making of capital improvement programs that affects not only my ward but Urbana in all. I have taken both roles seriously, and I conduct myself with integrity, honesty, and commitment, and I intend to be true to those values that I do for the city. I advocate for diversity and inclusion, and I would love for our council to reflect our diverse communities. I did not apply for the Ward 6 City Council for just myself, but for my son's future in this city, for every person that looks like me, and for every young adult who is interested in local government. To be an example that we are accepted, we have the capability to do the work, and that it is never too early to step up and contribute to your city. I plan on living in the city for a long time and will always want to play an active role in making sure Urbana is a great place for our residents, our businesses, tourists, and most importantly, the children of our communities. Thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you. So I want to sincerely thank all the applicants for this position and your families as well who are here tonight. I hope to have a decision for you by bring an appointment to council by next Monday. And it's going to be really difficult. So I will welcome input from the City Council.
Do you want me to read this?
From Joe?
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay.
And Charlie will read into the record the message from Joe Smith.
So this is from to Urbana City Council and Mayor. Thank you for this opportunity to address the council and prepare a written statement introducing myself to you. I'm sorry I'm unable to attend the March 2nd meeting. I am currently in Florida with my wife Linda celebrating our 15th anniversary at Walt Disney World. It was planned well in advance as a surprise to her. First, a little family background. My wife and I built our house on Mark Trail in 2004. I've lived in Ward 6 since 1989 for a total of 31 years and have actually lived in the Urbana-Champaign area for 55 of my 66 years. I know my way around the city very well. I have 2 sons and 3 stepsons that have all moved on with successful careers and starting families of their own. We are enjoying our grandparenting duties very much, with 2 in Iowa and 1 on the way here in Urbana. I completed my college education at the University of Illinois at the Urbana campus in 1975, earning a Bachelor of Science in Civil Engineering, and 2 weeks after my graduation, I was hired by the City of Urbana Public Works Department as a civil engineer. I've worked in public works as a registered professional engineer and held titles as civil engineer, city traffic engineer, senior civil engineer, assistant city engineer, and a short stint as acting city engineer. I served on the Traffic Commission for over 25 years and was a member on many staff committees that required my technical expertise. I retired in July of 2014 after 39 years of service.
As a longtime city employee, I have gained a thorough understanding of council procedures, committees, commissions, and budget processes, and can hit the ground running. I also have a significant knowledge of the public infrastructure and traffic safety needs of this city. Being on the city council would be an honor and a way for me to give back to the community that I love and that has supported and encouraged me and my family. I am proud to say that I have lived here and believe in our future. Sincerely, Joe Smith.
Thank you.
Okay, very good. So that completes the introduction of the candidates for Ward 6, and we hope to hear from the mayor next week concerning possible selection. And before we leave public input and presentations, we do have two people who would like to go on record, and I'm going to read them. The Reverend Dr. Evelyn B. Underwood would like to go on the record, although she does not choose to address the members, that we continually are concerned about the Dr. Ellis subdivision sewer problems. Second individual who would also like to have their opinion entered into the record, but would not wish to address the council, the committee of the whole, is Elderess Melinda Carr. And she also expresses continued concern concerning the Dr. Ellis subdivision sewer issues, equity, and historic impact. We do have one other person who will be speaking at the time that the item comes before our city council, and that is Tammy Masters. And actually, I guess that's now. Considering that we were just talking about it, please, you have about 5 minutes maximum.
Okay, I shouldn't need that long. Do I need to push this?
No, you're good.
Okay, good. So I'm Tammy Masters, and I'm the coordinator for the Country Squire Edition Neighborhood Watch, which is in Ward 6. I also am the lead on Nextdoor, which is an app a lot of you are probably familiar with. And that includes everything from Washington to Florida with my neighborhood watch there and on all the way to Florida, and then the Smith Road area and all that the newer houses for low income. So I just felt like I should be present since I'm involved so much in that area, and it's a part of Ward 6. A couple of things I wanted to try to just express that are continual concerns with what I've seen with people within the neighborhood watch and on Nextdoor would be obviously the crime issues with addiction and mental illness. So we want someone that's appraised of those issues within our community and what areas are impacted within our ward, and ideas and input within city council to try to address those without being impactful on a community of color type thing that we see. So we need to consider so much as a city council when it comes to crime impact and stuff like that. A lot of times there are needs to address that are mental illness and addiction and poverty that I feel like we need people on the council that know how to address those. Also, the other thing that my neighborhood has been considerably concerned about, especially with some of the older houses in my neighborhood, they're 50 years old. A lot of them are going to landlord, and typically tenants don't take as good a care of their property. And I know we have in Urbana, we have a lot of laws on those types of things. But I noticed just driving around my neighborhood, sometimes the street repairs aren't kept up as well. And the houses, a lot of times there's like algae growing on them. It's, not pleasant for the neighborhood. And especially with some of the poverty and some of the landlords in our area, programs to maybe help those people have a program to do some cleanup around their house to make our community look nice year round. So, and then the other thing would be, as the coordinator for Neighborhood Watch, if we have a watch party, I would like an alderman that would be present and available for us to come to an event and represent, city council that way also. So those were just the little concerns I wanted to express in your choice. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, that ends, it looks like, the public input for tonight, unless there's another individual who needs to come forward at this time. Okay, thank you then. We'll go down now to the staff report. Will there be one?
No, annual consolidated action plan.
Okay. Oh, Colin said, all right, yes, we do. We have the annual consolidated action plan update. Jumping ahead a little bit too fast. Thank you, Sheila Dodds, for community development.
So good evening. This is just public input. Oh, thank you, Charlie. To let you know that our 5-year consolidated plan and our 1-year annual action plan is available for public review. You should have received a link to it on Friday afternoon. It's quite a lengthy document, so I'm just going to summarize a few bullet points about this year's plan. The 5-year consolidated plan is required by the Department of Housing and Urban Development. It provides guidance for planning and implementation of our federal funds. The City of Urbana receives Community Development Block Grant as well as home funds. Since the City of Urbana acts as the lead agency for the home funds, we are responsible for the implementation of the plan. The plan is devised by City of Champaign, City of Urbana, and the Champaign County Regional Plan Commission. Those agencies share the pot of home funds, but each city is responsible for its Community Development Block Grant funding allocations. Staff from the City of Urbana and Champaign County Regional Planning Commission, as well as other stakeholders, provided input on the plan. Community plans such as the CU Public Health Community Plan and the Champaign County Housing Authority Move to Work Plan were also reviewed. Some highlights of the plan is the data used in the analysis for the plan comes from the 2010 census and the 2011 to 2015 Comprehensive Housing Affordability Strategy, or CHAS data. CHAS data is created for HUD from the U.S. Census data. The purpose of the CHAS data is to demonstrate the number of households in need of housing assistance. The public input process started in July of 2019, and it will continue through the end of March. The initial process in July was an online survey. Information on the survey was shared at the farmers market, social media, and with social service agencies, as well as in the general public. City staff also created a shorter version to lead discussions at community meetings. 132 survey responses were received, and over 20 public input meetings were held to capture a broader audience. This year, staff attended existing meetings to try to reach a broader audience. In the past, meetings were held in the evenings in targeted neighborhoods, which had little attendance. By changing this process, more people were able to provide input. The analysis of data, existing plans, key stakeholder interviews, and public input from citizens were all used to determine the current community needs and to develop recommended priority areas. Priority needs outlined by this process are infrastructure improvements were identified by all groups as a high need in the community. These include things such as street lighting, streets, and sidewalk repairs. Housing rehabilitation is continued as a high need. That includes housing modification to allow seniors to continue to live in their homes, emergency repairs such as roof, sewer, furnace, accessibility repairs, etc. Public service programs, programs for youth such as education, after-school programs, financial education for low-income families, and services to address homelessness were identified as the public service programs. Economic development opportunities, funding to support programs or services that create business retention and are jobs in low to moderate income neighborhoods. And then provide affordable housing opportunities for low to moderate income households. This would include a variety of affordable housing options, such as rental assistance programs, workforce housing, as well as tiny homes were some ideas discussed. rent assistance through the tenant-based rental assistance, as well as down payment assistance programs. Reducing exposure to lead-based paint, funds to support education, testing, and rehabilitation. And then finally, to continue to support the continuum of service providers to the homeless to address the homeless issues in our community. The 20 to 24 5-year plan has also included at the end of it a code enforcement plan, citizen participation plan, and a housing rehabilitation manual. These plans are usually adopted as part of the 5-year process, but can be amended during the time period if need be. The final plan will also include a home program manual, which identifies the procedures and HUD guidelines to implement home-funded projects. We're going to a conference next week, and so if there's any changes, I wanted to make sure to include them in that manual, so I held off putting it in. The code enforcement plan is a new document. The city is focusing a more targeted effort on providing services and having inspections by community development target area, which will hopefully show a greater impact. The citizen participation plan has one major change. The definition for what constitutes a major amendment was changed to read: the amendment proposes any change in the allocation or distribution of funds, activity, or recipient, and the dollar of that amount to change is equal to or greater than 25% of the current fiscal federal grant activity, where the old plan limit was $50,000. And the difference that makes to City Council is $50,000 was the higher limit prior to this recommended change, and next year it would be $126,000. With the new grant-based accounting system, funds will have to be reallocated every year, and hopefully this will make the budget amendment process move through quicker. The Housing Rehab Manual does not have any major changes, however, is included as part of the consolidated plan adoption process. For the 2021 Annual Action Plan, our federal allocation is going to be $501,415 for the block grant funds. And from that, we've broken it down into 5 categories. Administration is 10%, $100,283. Public services, transitional housing, cleanups, our consolidated social service funding is $61,000. Neighborhood revitalization programs to include capital improvement projects, blight reduction, code enforcement, public facility improvements, economic development opportunities, $215,132. Housing-related programs and program deliveries, such as our emergency and accessibility repairs, senior repair, and acquisition demolition projects, is $125,000. And then finally, the City of Urbana's portion of the home allocation is $178,722 this year. And that's identified as workforce housing development and the tenant-based rental assistance program. So the next steps in this process is the plan is out for public review and comment through March 31st. A second public hearing will be held at the Community Development Commission on March 24th. Public comments received during this 30-day time period will be incorporated into the final plan. Staff anticipates bringing the final plan to the Committee of the Whole meeting on April 6th, and then final adoption and approval must happen prior to May 15th to allow staff time to submit it to HUD.
Okay, are there questions? Yes, Bill.
Yeah, first on the survey, of the 132 received, do you remember how many were from Urbana?
I do not. I didn't do the tally of that, but I can get you that information.
Okay, because that would be Champaign and Urbana.
Yeah, because the plan addresses the community as a whole, we...
Did you get surveys from outside of Champaign-Urbana too?
No.
Okay. And then also in the survey respondents, the demographics didn't really seem to reflect the CDBG target areas, although it does say average household income of $88,000. I mean, you have a Bloomberg in there that could drive it up pretty high.
Right.
Do you have a median income for the survey responses?
The survey was the first piece of the citizen participation plan we did, and we recognized that the responses that we got really didn't represent the targeted areas. And so we created a shorter survey that really was a one-page, kind of highlighted the things that were eligible for the block grant funds. And then when we went out to community meetings, we used that as our guiding discussion points and got, much clearer representation from those meetings.
Okay. If you could find out what the median income of the responses was rather than the average, that would help too. 'Cause
For the one survey?
yeah,
Okay.
for the longer survey.
Sure.
And then I didn't get a chance to read all 384 pages yet, but
Yeah.
I did kind of glance at it over the weekend. And one thing that I saw was a kind of dismissal that we don't have home ownership opportunities for lower income people. But when you look at, like, I know in my ward, say between Wiley School and Candlestick Lane, there's a lot of houses that sell for less than $100,000, and with interest rates at what, 3 or 4%, if they can qualify for a loan, it's much more affordable than an $800 or $900 rent, even when you put in property taxes and everything. But so that the home ownership opportunities, I think could be explored more and maybe not dismissed so out of hand. I guess the community reinvestment program would be part of that, but does that program receive any CDBG money, or is that completely
The
separate?
Community Reinvestment Group, no, they do not. They're a group of local lenders that help us design down payment assistance programs or outline other bank reinvestment in the community. So maybe we decide to apply for Federal Home Loan Bank monies. One of those banks would help us do that application process. Or if we decide to apply for money through the Illinois Housing Development Authority, that group would be key in helping us get those funds. So they're really the bankers in town. We have heard from them because this pot of money can also be layered with others that can make a big difference on helping a lower income person have access to credit and down payment monies. But they're still saying it's a high need, that they're just not getting the people, the lower income people, to be able to qualify and apply for the loans. So that's another reason why the financial education was a key component too, because maybe that mixed with down payment would provide access to homeownership.
How did that work at Habitat? As long as we have you as a resource for Habitat, did people that get the Habitat houses, do they have to qualify, or?
They do. They go through a similar underwriting process like a conventional homeowner does. The difference is it's the best loan in town. It's 0% interest. There's usually no fees involved, so all fees are absorbed by the nonprofit. And then they usually have access to some pretty deep down payment money. So the typical Habitat house might sell for $100,000, and if you were in that 30 to 50% median family income range, you could qualify for a $20,000 down payment. So that makes a big difference. Many of the Habitat home buyers have mortgages that are 20 to 22 years in term, and their mortgages are, with their taxes and insurance escrowed, run around $600 a month. So they go into homeownership with a savings.
Okay, yeah, I looked up some houses on Laurel Drive. It's a short street with about 16 houses in there, and I think about half of them are owned by one person.
Yeah.
And they rent for about $800 a house, and they're assessed at $60,000. And if you do the math, you can your mortgage payment with insurance and taxes and everything would be about $500. So it's more affordable to buy in a lot of cases, and it seems like there ought to be a better way to make that happen.
And some of the challenges that come with using the home money, the property has to be up to code at the time that it sells, and many times those older housing units are good fixer-uppers, but they don't necessarily qualify for this money, and then because they aren't 100% up to code. And so that lower income family, why they might move into a home with a savings, they don't have the ability to bring it up to code. So those are some of the challenges that we're looking at as we look at different programs to make it more accessible.
Okay, Jared.
One question I was curious about when I was reading through some of this, and Bill, you kind of hit on it, but I know that FICO recently changed how they're going to score credit scores, and 2 out of the 3 larger credit companies have said that they're going to follow those new scores. Do you see that adversely even more adversely affecting applicants who are trying to seek home ownership, because everything that I've read seems like it's going to make people who don't have credit or have bad credit even harder for them to get credit in the future.
Yep, I absolutely think it's going to make it more difficult. And one of the other projects we're working on, you might see as you go through this plan, is there's a big difference between African American home buyers having access to credit versus non-African Americans. And so we're not sure what that reason is, but that's what the data from the census and the CHAZ have shown. And so we're working with the community reinvestment banks to talk about, what does the HMDA data show and where did that come from and why aren't they having the same access that everyone else has? What are those barriers, and then what can we do to address those barriers?
Are we considering, once we know a little bit more about that, having something to say about that in our comprehensive plan?
In the comprehensive plan?
Yeah.
Sure. That's all going to be a piece of this. The comprehensive plan is separate from the consolidated plan, but in some ways they very much work together to make opportunities for affordable housing.
I said comprehensive, I meant consolidated, but yes, they will come together at one point as well. So I'm sure you were aware of that. I just know that I was reading it and then I was reading about that and had similar thoughts to Bill and thinking, man, this is, the challenges just keep increasing.
Right. And it's not lost on the community. There was an affordable housing panel last week that Bill attended at the Housing Authority where there were several speakers there that, it's not just rent assistance, it's not home ownership. We can't build ourselves out of this affordable housing thing. There's just a lot of pieces of a puzzle that need to come together to make a difference nationally.
Thanks.
Sharice.
I just wanted to add, because you were talking about the difference in how in African American home ownership, and there are a lot of covenants that were written within sales of homes and stuff, and some of those still stick. We may not think so in the 21st century, but some of them are still there. And as well as federally, it had been put in place that as a segregation type of everybody likes to live closer to their own type of thinking. A lot of banks would not loan, and that may be something that if you look at the history of the loaners, my parents had to go to West Virginia to get a loan for their house. So, I mean, they didn't physically go there, but that's where they had to apply to get the loans for their houses, for their home. So, I think when you dig more, you'll see historically that it's some of those particular prejudices still apply when it comes to African American, and the fact that we as a diaspora in this country do not make the money. We don't seem to hit a particular income level more often than not.
Right.
That is required by certain people, and that was also another way of keeping black people from home ownership. So.
Yeah, the Community Reinvestment Act had hoped to address some of that, but unfortunately, there's some legislation pending right now at the federal level that's going to have huge changes to the CRA if it goes through. And one of those is you used to be able to count if you served a family in a targeted neighborhood, whether they were low income or not, because everybody is for mixed income housing. You want people of different races and different income levels to be able to all live together. Now that's going to change to where they're not going to focus their efforts on the low-income targeted neighborhoods. They're going to just focus their effort on the person. And so a lot of people in this field are doing some scrambling, writing letters to Congress saying, please rethink this process, because to dismantle the Community Reinvestment Act is going to set us back to the 1950s, and we all know how bad that was with redlining.
Yeah, and it still exists, so that's how it goes.
Yes, Eric.
What is the legal and practical status of leases or sales agreements that contain language that would today be illegal. So, I mean, the documents exist, but presumably those clauses would no longer be enforceable. For example, a racial, a clause regarding racial prejudice. But, so I'm assuming that those clauses would not be enforceable any longer. Is that correct?
I'll be honest, I'd have to see the particular clause. The general concept with contracts is whatever the language of a contract is at the time it's written, if it was lawful at the time, then it remains lawful.
Wow.
Otherwise, you have the application of, conceptually anyway, of an ex post facto law. However, in the area of discrimination, it can be a different story. But normally, general contract, legal principles applicable to contracts generally provide that if a contract is lawful at the time it's entered and there's consent on, and mutual consideration on both sides, then typically they are enforceable. If they are void against public policy, again, that introduces another issue. So I would have, before I could really make a definitive statement, it's a good question, but it's highly generalized. I'd have to see the language of the contract.
I guess what I'm wondering, the context is that I'm wondering if that archaic language is still having an impact on transactions that are being made today, and if it is there anything we can do about it?
I'm also a licensed real estate broker, and I can tell you the real estate contracts in the state of Illinois don't have that language. Now, if I decide to sell you my house and we write something up on a napkin and I put discriminatory language in it, well then, like Jim said, what's written there isn't necessarily the same, but state of Illinois licensed realtors don't have that language in their contracts. They all have a standardized document that they use. Downstate of Illinois, Cook County has a totally different document with many more pages. I do agree with Sharice. I think there's a lot of implicit biases that go on, and it may not be stated in an actual written word, but I think people are misled or misinformed verbally, and that discourages them from applying for home ownership. And I'm not sure what to do about that except to continue to educate the public as much as we can.
Other comments? Bill?
Just a question on the code enforcement part.
Mm-hmm.
So some of the CDBG money will cover some code enforcement time.
Mm-hmm.
Does that include the rental inspectors, or is that?
If they are inspecting in a targeted neighborhood, yes, it would include them. It's the person that's doing the property maintenance inspections, the grass, weeds, junk debris type things, a third of that person's salary, and then a person that does the inspections. And that person is also kind of helping do the rehabs that we're doing, so.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yes, Attorney, yes.
Let me further clarify for Council Member Jacobson. Clearly, if a contract term in a contract at the time it's drafted is illegal, say contains redlining language, mortgage language, or other forms of discriminatory language, that's void. It's if somebody entered into a contract, somehow some kind of a contract that was entered into in the 1950s, and let's say it's there today, same parties and all, then you get into the question, I mean, the contract presumably was legal then. That's the agreement between the parties, unless it's truly void against public policy. And there are class actions that deal with that.
Okay. Is this all we need to do as far as this time? So thank you for the presentation. All right. And then I guess now I can ask about staff report. Should there be one?
I have a real quick update.
Please do then, Carol Mitten.
On a couple of the transportation projects. So for Dr. Ellis and the lighting project on Kinch, we're expecting a bid opening on March 20th. And just so Sheila can rest assured, we have a mechanism in place so with that we know that we'll be paying out a sufficient amount of the CDBG money so that we won't lose any of that as part of those projects. And then we are planning on a bid opening for the MCOR project on March 31st. So we're going to be busy opening bids in late March, and then we'll be busy getting a bunch of projects under construction.
That sounds very positive. Thank you very much. All right, I guess we'll go into now the body of our work tonight. Starting with item number 6 on the agenda, resolution number 2020-03-012R, which is a resolution approving an intergovernmental agreement to upgrade the area-wide record management system, or known as ARMS. This is to be in compliance with the National Incident-Based Reporting System specifications. And we have our IT Director, Sanford Hess.
Good evening, everyone. This is a very similar item to one that we discussed a few weeks ago. And in this case, it's a smaller dollar amount with the City of Champaign. The prior one was a larger dollar amount with the County Sheriff's Office. In both cases, those entities have received a grant, and that grant has a requirement for a certain amount of that money to be spent towards this new standard for incident reporting. And the City of Urbana, as the responsible agency for this computer system called ARMS, we're doing this work anyway. So in these cases, we are then allowed to get some reimbursement from these two other agencies. In this case, it's the City of Champaign, $1,609.55.
Okay. Any comments or questions? Mary Alice?
So if I remember correctly, ARMS is being used by Parkland College, no? ARMS?
Actually, Parkland has read-only access.
Oh, they have read-only access. So is this for people, are the major players here Champaign County and Champaign City, or does it extend beyond that?
It extends beyond that. It's in addition to those two, it's also the University of Illinois Police and the Rantoul Police.
Okay. Are they going to be contributing funds towards this project as well?
Oh, no, only the City of Champaign and the Sheriff's Office got this grant. So those are the only two that had this.
So if this passes, what's the total amount that will be coming from both entities?
Combined, it's slightly more than $50,000.
And then how much is it costing us to do the work?
It's most of our effort we have one programmer. We're actually adding some additional time for another programmer, but we have one programmer, and it's pretty much his full-time task for all of 2020.
So does it cover like 75% of that person's salary?
At this point, no. At this point, it would probably closer to half of our costs in total. We have 2 people working on it, so yes, that's all.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions? Is there a motion then?
I'll move to send resolution number 2020-03-012R, resolution approving intergovernmental agreement to upgrade the area-wide record management system to City Council with recommendation for approval.
I'll second.
And Mary Alice Wu seconds it. Other discussion at this time? Okay. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that goes forward to the City Council.
Thank you.
All right. Next on the agenda is number 7, ordinance number 2020-03-007, an ordinance approving amendments to the City of Urbana Community Development Block Grant budgets in the annual action plans for the fiscal years 2014 to 2015, 2015 to 2016, 2016 to 2017, and 2017 to 2018, and fiscal year 2018 to 2019. Sheila Dodds has more to tell us.
There's actually 2 ordinances here. The second one is an ordinance revising the annual budget to include those reallocated dollars. So,
Mike.
thank you. A few years ago, the HUD changed their way that they process their grants. So typically, it was first in, first out. So if you didn't spend all of your 2014, it just rolled up and you spent it first in 2015. Well, with this budget change, if it wasn't approved in the 2014 budget, and you ended up the year with money left in that grant line item, it stays there until you do this process to reallocate it. And typically, we don't ever spend 100% in a calendar year. So this program, or this amendment, is requesting these changes to just reallocate those old dollars into this year's current budget, and then we plan on using that for capital improvement projects such as the Kinch Street lighting, and I think there's some projects in the Dr. Ellis subdivision and whatever other things that Public Works identifies as needs. Part of the process driving this is we currently have to spend about $200,000 of this old money by May 1st, or we risk losing the funds. So by doing this amendment, working with Public Works to get a project ready to move quickly, we'll be able to reallocate those monies and use them for Urbana.
And so you're casting back through these other years for funds that hadn't been allocated or used?
They hadn't been allocated, but they hadn't necessarily been used. So you might guess you're going to spend $60,000 on housing rehab, and then at the end of the year, you spent $54,000. So then that $6,000 needs to be reallocated. So when you look at the amendment, looks like funny little, numbers, but that's what is left in the pot of money, so we need to reallocate that forward.
And they hadn't been reallocated earlier?
Nope.
Okay, so we're going back and saving them.
Yes.
Other comments or questions? Yes, Jared?
I don't have a comment or question, but I'd make a motion.
Go ahead, please.
I'm going to move ordinance number 2020-03-007, an ordinance approving amendments to the City of Urbana Community Development Block Grant budgets and annual action plans. I'm not going to read those again, but
all of those.
I'll move that ordinance gets forwarded to the full City Council with a recommendation for approval.
Second.
And seconded by Sharice. Any comments, thoughts? Yes, Sharice.
So my question is, the monies that aren't used, they will be used in the same department, or these will be consolidated and then put toward particular other projects, or what? For example, you have the Urbana Senior Repair Service stuff, and all of that wasn't used up, but there's $8,000 that can go. Does it go toward the senior repair, or can you put it anywhere?
We can put it anywhere, and we identified the neighborhood revitalization line item in the budget amendment to put these funds there for two reasons. One, we need to spend it by May 1st, and so it's going to need to be a large project that helps us do that. Where the senior repair program is projects that are $1,000, and we don't have 200 of them to do between now and May 1st. So by reallocating those smaller pots, that doesn't take away what we currently have.
I bet in our ward we could probably find 10.
And it doesn't take away from what we're currently doing. It just reallocates that older money.
Okay.
All right, so we have any more questions about this? Okay, we could have a vote. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
And any opposed? Okay, that passes, and we'll go forward with approval.
We also need to include the budget amendment ordinance.
Which is our next one, correct?
Okay.
All right. So the next item is number 8, ordinance number 2020-03-008, an ordinance revising the annual budget ordinance, budget amendment number 5 concerning the action plan amendment. Yes, Mary Alice.
I think there's actually 2 different annual budgets here, if I'm reading this correctly.
Oh, yeah,
5 and
number
6.
10.
Number 7, I think, has 2 action plans. Am I reading that right?
Number 7, the memo for number 7
has 2
Right,
ordinances.
it has 2 ordinances in number 7, and one of them is
have I
a
missed
budget.
No, it's number 8. That's separately listed as number 8 on the agenda for action.
On the agenda.
Oh, my bad.
It's in
you
the
were
same
right.
memo.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, they're pinned together, yes, that's right.
Okay.
So we are in the right place at the right time.
I'd like to make a motion to approve that ordinance.
Okay.
Second.
I shouldn't say approve, I should say send to the full council with a recommendation for approval.
Very good, Jared.
And still second.
And thank you, Cerise. And is there other questions? Eric?
We're talking about the budget amendment, including the Carl payment, is that correct?
No,
Not
that's
yet.
next.
No.
Not yet.
Not yet, oh, okay.
No, we're on number 10,
We're still on the Community
Eight.
Development Action
or
Plan.
number 8,
Got it, okay,
7 and 8.
All right.
thank you.
Okay, those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
And any opposed? There are none, so we will see that forward in our next meeting. Okay, number 9 was withdrawn, so now we're going to talk about number 10. Ordinance number 2020-03-010, an ordinance revising the annual budget ordinance, budget amendment number 6, omnibus, finance with Elizabeth Hannon.
So we have several items included on this budget amendment. One is taking the funds that were in the special reserve fund and budgeting an expense to repay as ordered by the court a certain portion of Carl property taxes that we were holding. We have actually, because we were ordered by the court to do this, we have already cut the check, so this is kind of a follow-up to make the budget right. The second one relates to the new position for the comprehensive plan, and so this would establish the budget to get us through the end of the current fiscal year. That will then appear in future budgets as a one-time expense to round out that 3-year term. Also, for many years, the Illinois Law Enforcement Training Standards Board paid directly when we sent officers to the Police Training Institute for their training. They are no longer able to do that due to some financial challenges, and so we now have to budget for that. And hopefully, somewhere in the future, we will get a portion of that reimbursed back when they do have some funds. So that is an increase in the budget. And then the other item included on this budget amendment relates to overtime in the fire department. This can sometimes be difficult to predict because of our need to maintain a certain minimum staffing level on all of the pieces of fire apparatus that we operate. And we actually track overtime at a very detailed level, about 50 different categories of overtime in the fire department. So it appears that this year we're headed for about 14,500 hours of overtime, which is up substantially from the last couple of years. So again, that goes back to the need to maintain minimum staffing, and it's driven by the third vacation slot that's proving to have higher use than we anticipated when we approved the most recent labor agreement. It's also driven by use of other leave time and sick leave for both employees and for them to care for family members. And I will point out that Chief Loss is here in the room. If we want to talk about that in more detail, we can get him up here to help with that. This really, in terms of the Carl property tax repayment, I just want to mention that that doesn't have any impact on the general fund, doesn't have any impact on our more positive forecast that we've seen, because that money's been set aside in another fund for a number of years, just in the event that this occurred.
Yes. Okay, questions? We'll start with Jared.
So the obviously the big standout here is the OT in the fire department, especially considering it looks like almost doubling that third slot vacation time from last year to this year. Is this going to be something where, I mean, before we even get into the reasons why that's changed so much, is this something we're looking at in our recurring expenses versus revenues problem?
So possibly in some of these categories, there might be an impact on recurring expenses going forward. Some of these are just due to unique events and won't recur. So the chief and I have spent many hours pouring through all the stats on their overtime use and trying to break that down. So I don't expect the need will be this high next fiscal year, but will it be higher than the current budget? Possibly.
Okay, and the chief is available if we need to ask him things.
I bet Mary Alice has 3 questions for him.
I was going to start with the third vacation spot.
Okay, Mary Alice Wu.
If you could, Chief, if you wouldn't mind coming up and describing to us what this is, and, yeah.
Chief Loss thing.
Yep.
Good evening.
This is for the audience, this is what we're looking at, the distribution by years and by category. So obviously the third slot and the Kelly Days, those are the two big ones right there that have really increased.
Sure. During this past negotiations, the third slot was negotiated into the collective bargaining agreement, which creates the guarantee for the firefighters to pick a third vacation day. That third vacation day, that gives the availability of 3 firefighters to pick a vacation day on each shift day. So if 3 of us at vacation pick time wanted July 4th off, then 3 of us would have a guaranteed pick for that day. So that it's just, then if somebody calls in sick, if somebody's injured, those days are guaranteed, so it creates overtime automatically.
So that third vacation day, there's only 3 days in the entire year that they're allowed to do that, is that right?
No, it's every day. I mean, 365 days a year, they can pick, 3
Right.
people can guarantee any day.
Maybe-
So there's 3 people that can be guaranteed off every day of the year.
But for the individual who wants to take the day,
Mhm.
do they only get to use that third day 3 times during the year?
No, if say I would have 5 vacation days to use for 2020, I have 5 opportunities to be the third pick.
Oh, to be the third pick, okay.
Yeah,
okay,
third pick.
Yeah, all right. And then just so the audience understands what a Kelly Day is.
Sure. Kelly Day is a reduction in the FLSA, the Fair Labor Standards Act. So it reduces the number of hours so that it brings in line with the federal legislation of the amount of hours that the firefighters work. Without that, they work 2,912 hours, and I believe, Elizabeth, they're at 2,840.
Sounds right.
I think they're at 2,840 hours. Normal work week for 40 hours, 2,080. And if they don't get any Kelly days at all, their average work week, or the average annual hours are 2,912 hours.
So why do we have such an increase here?
In Kelly time?
Yeah.
Was there Kelly time negotiated in the CBA? Okay.
No Kelly Days.
Okay. I'm not exactly sure. The big increase, because they have 2 Kelly days. They've had 2 Kelly days, as far as I know, for a couple of contracts.
Okay, all right. Yeah, as I look at those two, those are the 2 big differences. And the others obviously are larger, but not to that extreme.
Right.
Are those 2 Kelly Days per month?
No, that's per year.
Per year?
Yes.
So
And that
like
reduces
it's like a wild card day.
Yeah, it's just it's a reduction in the hours, so they get 2 24-hour shifts off that they can schedule, and it reduces their annual hours so that the stipend or pay doesn't have to, we don't have to pay that extra check to the firefighters at the end of the year.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Is that like comp time?
Comp time, I don't know. It's not like comp
I'm
time
trying
at
to
all.
understand the Kelly.
Yeah.
So the way that we do Kelly Days here at the City of Urbana is different than what I've seen in other places.
Mhm.
It really kind of functions almost like 2 additional vacation days.
Okay.
They can schedule them.
Okay. How many firefighters do we have exactly?
We have 59 within the department, 52 on shift. We have 1 shift with 19, 2 with 18. So we use that with the 1 shift that has 19 to kind of backfill for some of the injuries and illnesses, things like that, to help offset some of the overtime.
And how have the calls increased this year, this fiscal year, as opposed to last fiscal year or something?
Yeah, we're up probably 100 calls.
Okay. I'm just trying to understand.
And I will get you an annual report, I promise. We're working on the annual report now, so we'll get that for you.
Okay, Bill Brown.
Yeah, and just to clarify, in case people are watching at home, those aren't millions of dollars on the left side. That's hours with a decimal point and 3 zeros
Yes,
after it.
absolutely.
Okay. So the total amount for all the overtime difference was $220,000. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. Thanks.
Oh, yes. Jared.
Chief, would you say, and I know this isn't maybe something we're expecting to recur, Elizabeth, perhaps we'll see reduction, an increase still in the past, but a reduction maybe from this year. Do you consider the fire department understaffed?
We the one, like I said, the one shift has 19 right now, and that firefighter that we have on that shift is able to backfill anytime that we have time off. So that does help. You know, it does help to reduce. You know, if there's injury, if there's an illness, then we, long term especially, we can switch them over.
One of the things that we've looked at from time to time is at what point does it make sense to round out those other 2 shifts with an additional firefighter? Because at some point when the overtime gets very large, it could be actually less expensive to add an additional firefighter to avoid the overtime. The
Right.
last time we looked at that was, I want to say, at least a year ago.
Okay.
And it just, with the numbers that we were looking at that time, it didn't make sense.
Okay.
But there's also the other factor we have to consider is whether the amount of overtime is healthy.
Right. Well, I mean, I see 220,000, and I'm like, well, that's 2 FTEs to me right there in the fire department.
Yeah, I think the thing is that this is a very unusual year, at least when you compare it to the last 5 years. So what we need to look at it is it an anomaly and it's going to go back to a more normal level next year, or is this kind of what it's going to look like in the future, in which case it probably would make sense to increase the staffing.
Okay. And Chief, are we going to see in your annual report maybe some insights into why we're seeing such an increase in calls this year over last year? I mean, 100 calls, it's a big increase. It sounds like. I don't know if statistically it is or not, but
It's moderate. I mean,
Okay.
It really is not an exceptional amount. But yes, you will see the type of calls that we went on. A few pictures in there to kind of give you a little bit of an idea of what we did.
Okay.
Yep.
Other comments or questions here? Eric?
I guess I'm shifting to Carl. Is this payment, it's a legal question, I guess. Is this payment part of what's subject to appeal? And maybe, depending on a higher court, we might get it back, or is this just gone?
The whole case now is up on appeal, so every issue in the case on appeal, including the order that the judge entered. So if the appellate court fully reverses, and let's say that's the end of the case, I assure you it won't be. It'll go to, at least there'll be a petition to the Illinois Supreme Court. And for all we know, a court could remand it back to the trial court for further proceedings of some kind. But in the event we prevail in the appellate court, and we hope we do, some good issues, and that's the end of the case, then we would get the money back because that order would be stricken that had ordered us to return to the treasurer for distribution back to Carl.
Maybe it's appropriate now to say about a week ago, a little over a week ago, I sent to everybody on the council a couple of documents that pertained to tax-exempt hospitals, nonprofit hospitals, and question of appropriateness of that status. And I'm not commenting, I mean, we're in litigation, I'm not going to comment on it legally, but I will say that one of the documents was a peer-reviewed publication from a journal on economics of health, which listed profitability of hospitals in the United States, both for-profit and nonprofit. Measure of profitability was what was the difference on the average for each hospital stay between what the hospital collected and the expenses the hospital incurred. And Carle Hospital, by that measure, was the 10th most profitable hospital in the United States. So that may or may not reflect, that I guess it doesn't reflect on the legal question. That's for courts and lawyers to decide, but may reflect on the question of the logic and the justice of the situation in which we find ourselves.
Yes, Jared.
Non-Carl related comment, just budgetary thing to either think about, not necessarily for comment, Elizabeth, but I know there's a certain illness that's on the tip of everyone's tongue these days, and the federal government has started urging local governments to make preparations, and as such, what is, generally speaking, the city's approach as far as finances are concerned to deal with something like this? I know any reaction in the community would probably be led by the health district, not by the city itself, but do we work with the regional task force to develop a plan for, financial contribution from each government body for dealing with something like that? Should we start seeing cases in Champaign-Urbana?
So, I mean, I think that's still very much getting worked out, and Carol can probably comment on that better than I can. But I will point out that this is one of the reasons where we always emphasize the importance of having a healthy fund balance. Because, it might be a tornado, it might be a recession, it might be coronavirus. And so we are prepared if there is a financial impact.
I know that the mayor was speaking to the Julie Pride, the head of the public health district, earlier, so she may have something to add. But as far as we are currently participating in the regional meetings around preparedness, and we, with some of the changes that we made in Public Works, we now have Scott Tess leading our continuity, obviously, in the event that isolation is part of the equation for people. How do we, which services do we prioritize, and the extent to which we could deliver services remotely. So that's very much an active conversation right now.
Keep us in the loop.
And Mayor.
The message from Julie Pride today is things are changing by the minute. But we're in very close contact with the public health district. They'll be coordinating the countywide response. We're also have representation on the I guess it's a task force that John Dwyer, the emergency operations folks at the county, are putting together. And in fact, there's a meeting tomorrow with representatives from the cities, the university, and various agencies. And so we're looking at what we do internally as a city to maintain operations going forward, plus also externally what assistance the community is going to need to provide to people should they, for example, have to be isolated in a home for 2 weeks, and that sort of thing. So where this county, I think, is way ahead of many counties in the state because of the leadership of the public health district, and she's really, we're really not waiting for guidance from the federal government because it's not coming. So once we'll know more later this week, and then we'll let folks know where we are.
Thanks.
Okay, then I guess Mary Alice and then Bill.
I just wanted to say that the university released a notification today that all students who were in Italy and in South Korea were immediately asked to come home because of the level 4 that was released by the State Department. They've also said that people who travel to a level 2 or level 3 country must self-quarantine for 14 days if they come back to the community. And as you said, things change moment by moment, because I went to get a definitive list, and it was yesterday's, and it was out of date. So the State Department has reclassified Italy and South Korea as a level 4. So just to make people aware, if you're planning spring break trips, check out what the status is before you leave and get on that.
A staycation is a great idea this year. Also, a very good website to go to is the Champaign-Urbana Public Health District website.
Bill Brown.
Yeah, and it is kind of related to the overtime because we don't want people needing to come in when they're sick. So if, you know, and I see your notices sometimes that you're looking for somebody to come in to cover a shift. I don't know if I'm supposed to be getting those still, but I'm getting those on my phone. What happens if you can't cover a shift? Is it possible to just close one of the stations and have the other stations covered?
But it's very rare that we'll ever run short. You know, when they put out multiple notices like that, generally it's somebody that is trying to find childcare so that they can get that childcare and then get in. But it's very rare that we will ever run short. Would not shut a station down for sure. I don't want to say for sure. Hopefully, would not get to that.
Alternative scenarios here, so I thought I'd bring that up.
Yes, hopefully we would never get to that point. We do have mutual aid agreements, so that if we ever run that short, we would implement the mutual aid agreements so that we'd have backfill.
Yeah, and that would, if we shut down a station, that would affect our rating also ultimately this year, right?
Absolutely.
We would lose our excellent rating.
That could, yes.
Could, essentially. All right, so that was the omnibus amendment. Any other conversation about that? Yes, Jerry?
No comments, but make a motion, move ordinance number 2020-03-010, ordinance revising the annual budget ordinance, budget amendment numero 6, be forwarded to the full council with recommendation for approval.
Second.
Seconded by Eric Jacobson. Is there any other comment or discussion? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, that gives forward with the recommendation of approval. Okay, next, number 11, resolution number 2020-03-013R, a resolution approving an intergovernmental agreement between the City of Urbana and the Police Pension Fund. And we have Elizabeth again.
So,
working very hard tonight.
So, as we've discussed before, we are in the process of moving all of the city's applications that run on the old AS400 computer away from that. One of the things that was on that computer was the payrolls for the two pension funds, both police and fire, and that work was done by an employee not in the fire department and not on her work hours. So as I discussed that with the pension board, because we were looking for a new solution to accomplish that work, we kind of came around to the idea that the most cost-effective way to do that is to move that onto our Munis system. However, one of my concerns is that we not have somebody who's not a city employee, not an employee of the finance department in our payroll system, just in terms of keeping the data secure. And so we think this is much more cost-effective than, for example, hiring an outside accounting firm to do this work. And so we negotiated an agreement with the police pension board, and we expect to have the fire pension board make the same agreement with us in the future. And so if we want to proceed with this, we need council to approve the intergovernmental agreement.
Okay, are there questions? Mary Alice?
Who was paying for this arrangement prior to, you said the person worked off
Yeah,
city
so the
buildings?
pension fund, each of the pension funds was paying that person.
Okay, so
directly.
this is taking on a new responsibility for us.
Yes.
Okay.
And it would ultimately, in next year's budget, we would add a 0.25 FTE, so a 10-hour-a-week position to do this work. So it's kind of a circular equation here. So we want the most cost-effective solution to get the work done. Because it's a pension fund expense, it's going to come back to us in the end no matter what. right? Either we pay it now or we pay it later through increased pension contributions.
And then
Comments?
this is
We got to pay it either way.
And then Mary Alice again.
This is just a silly thing that I was reading through this, who is responsible for doing what, and so the Director of Finance is all over here, but I think that there might have been, I should have bookmarked it, it might have been a definition that said the head of the Finance Department, or those they deem qualified from here on out will be the Finance Director. Is that right? Because they're all these duties are assigned to the finance director.
Yeah, so I'm going to delegate those duties.
I understand that, but I'm just trying to figure out, based on this document, does that document say that?
I think it does. I believe it does.
Okay. Maybe you want to double check so you don't increase your workload.
Cherise.
With the person that will be hired, is that someone that's already here and working, and you're just going to add to what they do, or are we actually going to hire a part-time person?
I'm going to explain this in general terms. We have a current city employee who does this work for the pension funds, who will be retiring at the end of June. We expect that we will be able to hire her back into this 10-hour position without benefits. So yes, it would be an increase of 10 hours a week in staffing in finance.
Okay.
All right. Okay, other questions? Jared.
I'm going to make a motion to move resolution number 2020-03-013R, resolution approving this intergovernmental agreement between the City of Urbana and the Police Pension Fund be sent forward to the full council with a recommendation for approval.
Second.
Eric Jacobson seconds it. Jared, please never be sick. We depend upon you to be an engine here for activity.
Well, if you are sick, stay home.
For 14 days.
I'll call in.
This is our new mantra. You can call in.
Yes, if you have a respiratory infection, call in.
All right. Is there further discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay. That passes as well and goes to City Council. Our final item, resolution number 2020-03-014R, a resolution appointing the Home Resources Manager as authorized agent for the Illinois Municipal Retirement Fund in 2020. Yes, Elizabeth.
I think this is a human resource officer.
Oh.
Home?
What did I say? Home.
Home.
Oh, too many CD things happening tonight. This is the human resource manager.
So each city that participates in IMRF is required to designate an authorized agent who's responsible for signing off on various actions on behalf of the city, and the city council has to approve that designation. So this was something that Todd Rent had done in the past. In the new structure, we are going to assign this to Elizabeth Borman, who is the human resources manager.
Okay. Any comments or questions for Elizabeth? Yes, Mary Alice Wu.
I'll make a motion.
Ta-dum.
On resolution number 2020-03014R, resolution appointing the human resource manager as the authorized agent for the Illinois Municipal Retirement Fund for 2020.
Second.
Cerise seconds it. Any further comments or questions?
No.
Discussion. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? That passes. Seeing no further, there's no other comments or announcements, I assume. Seeing no other business at this time, we adjourn. I call us adjourned.